They were fearsome rulers of the ancient world for over 1,000 years. Wherever they went, they conquered. And wherever they conquered, another city sprang up. These vanquished territories were reshaped and redesigned into the Roman vision of how a metropolis should function. Who were the geniuses behind the cities of an empire that stretched across 3 continents? What do these municipalities reveal to us about the lives and spirits of the ancient Romans? And what brutality and suffering is absorbed deep within these walls? Explore these amazing remnants as we uncover the splendor of the Roman civilization through these mysterious ancient cities. Many think of ancient Rome as a shiny metropolis, land of the emperors.
I found Rome a city of bricks, and leave it a city of marble. Augustus, first emperor of Rome, 14 AD.
But to understand how Roman culture spread across the ancient world, one must understand the beginning of the city that would one day be known as Rome. How did the establishment of this territory pave the way for other cities that extended across the empire? Evidence reveals what was later unified into Rome, the city, was originally a group of diverse tribes who lived in simple hut villages clustered around the 7 hills of what was to become Rome. Historians believe these settlements were originally ruled by kings who lorded over the farmers who lived in the fertile hills and valleys along the Tiber River. Of all the tribes, the most intriguing were the Etruscans. But who were these mysterious Etruscans?
We know nothing about the Etruscans except what they tell us through their art. The Greeks have left us a full literature, including historical writings, the Romans also. But we have no legends, we have no epics in written form of the Etruscans. All we have are the monuments themselves over the course of several hundred years. And so those centuries of Etruscan monuments provide our fullest understanding for the Etruscan civilization.
Beginning around 600 BC, the Etruscans established what would become the foundation for Rome and all the later cities of the empire. Some historians believe it was the Etruscans who invented the first aqueducts, which the Romans later used to bring fresh water to their cities. The Etruscans had their origins in farming, but pottery and artwork continue to be unearthed, revealing the Etruscans to be sophisticated traders, buying and selling goods in both Greece and Carthage. The Etruscans were praised artisans, skilled metal workers, and engineers. Through paintings found in their well-preserved tombs, it is evident that love and passion was actively pursued and highly treasured. Mysticism and prophecy were revered and honored as though they were a science. The Etruscans believed the future could be told through a flock of birds in flight or by the veins of an animal's liver. Some of the Etruscans' neighbors included the Latins, the Samnites, and the Sabines. These tribes intermixed in trade and lifestyle, making it difficult for historians to understand exactly who the Romans were. What is known is that the people who settled in the land in this territory and gained independence from their Etruscan rulers came to be known as Romans. But how did the formation of Rome come to pass? How was it founded? So much of it is shrouded in mystery, myth, and conflicting facts. The most famous of legends traces Roman ancestry to the god Mars in the 9th century BC. This primal god of the Latin race had impregnated a Vestal virgin who gave birth to a set of twins named Romulus and Remus. But the Vestal virgin had broken a sacred Roman law by getting pregnant, so she had to abandon her babies, setting them afloat in a basket down the Tiber River.
They don't drown. The Tiber had flooded, it recedes, the basket's safe. They're found by a she-wolf who suckles them, and that's a very common statue and symbol of Rome now. But that's important because it means that Romulus and Remus, as founders of Rome, are actually semi-divine, and it allowed the Romans to trace their lineage back to a god.
Legend has it that as an adult, Romulus killed his twin brother to become sole ruler and king. Where did this legend begin? Some believe that historians of the period made up the story to give divine justification for conquering outlying regions and making those cities over to be like Rome. The god's role in the twins' birth and life also allows Romulus to continue on his devious course. King Romulus invited people from all over Italy, even fugitives, to settle in Rome. He did this in order to expand his base of power.
Doubtless, the country held many fugitives, men lurking in woods or caves, hiding in mountain clefts. There were certainly no women among this desperate horde. The ancient historian Livy, 11 AD.
Romulus traveled to all of the neighboring tribes to find wives for the bachelors of his city. But his efforts were in vain. Who were these criminals the king was asking them to give their daughters off to? But Romulus would eventually get what he needed. He attracted the tribes to Rome by organizing an elaborate festival honoring the god Neptune. But when the festival games were about to commence, the king sent out a signal. Rather than entertainment, horror and devastation preempted the evening as young Roman men raided the arena and raped the young Sabine virgins. The story of the rape of the Sabine women is an important piece of the puzzle of how the city of Rome was populated. This brutal crime also helps to explain the confusion surrounding who exactly the Romans were. But whether or not the tragedy of the Sabine women is based on truth remains a mystery. But was there really a king named Romulus, founder of the city of Rome? A number of archaeological monuments have sprung up throughout the centuries, giving credence to this famous legend. One such monument is the Casa Romuli, positioned on the Palatine Hill. Some historians speculate that this hut was once the home of Romulus, Rome's first king. But what evidence can archaeology provide that proves early Rome was ruled by kings? The perfect clue was discovered in the Roman Forum in the late 19th century. It is a cryptic inscription called the Lapis Niger, because it was uncovered beneath a pavement of black marble. On it reads,
"Whosoever defiles this spot, let him be forfeit to the shades of the underworld. Whatsoever persons the king shall discover passing on this road, let him order the summoned to seize their draft animals by the reins, that they may turn out of the road and take the proper detour."
Understanding the Rome of the kings and hut dwellers offers insight into the eternal city as it would be known during the reign of the emperors some 600 years later. But How did it dramatically shift from sprawling hut villages to an urban republic to capital of the empire? In years to come, the city of Rome would become an icon for pragmatism and power. It would be the heart of the empire as the Romans conquered the rest of Italy, Greece, Spain, and Africa. The Forum of Rome is the oldest testament to Rome's past and the birthplace of the city's urban life. In time, the Forum became the lifeblood of the Roman people. Their markets, their temples, their senate houses, their town meetings were all there. And as Rome conquered cities across the world, roads were built that stretched into the far reaches of the empire. Each road eventually brought one home to Rome, to the Forum. Beginning around 509 BC, Rome went from a unified settlement of hut villages to a republic, ruled by a governing body called a Senate. In the late period of Rome's republic, during the 2nd century BC, many wars had been fought and won. The spoils of these victories provided the money to build the new city. One of the most important heroes of the Roman Republic was Julius Caesar, a valiant general whose continuous victories made this brave leader and his soldiers and Rome rich. But as he had millions who adored him, Julius Caesar had enemies as well. Fearing that his power would lead to a monarchy, he was struck down by assassins at the height of his career. Caesar's death symbolized the dying state of Rome as a republic. 1,500 years later, Shakespeare eloquently captured the essence of what Caesar symbolized to the Republic of Rome in his oratory by Mark Antony.
Ingratitude, more strong than traitors' arms, quite vanquished him. Then burst his mighty heart. Oh, what a fall was there, my countrymen! Then I and you and all of us fell down whilst bloody treason flourished over us. Mark Antony, Shakespeare's Julius Caesar.
Within 2 years, the murderers were themselves killed. Julius Caesar was proclaimed a god by the Roman people. But the death of Caesar made way for his adopted heir, Octavian, who later would earn the title of First Emperor, Augustus Caesar.
He was the guy who succeeded in doing the impossible, which was to hold the Roman world together. And he, at a very young age, fought through and defeated his rivals. Then the main problem of Augustus's whole reign is holding on to power, consolidating power, and setting up a structure that is going to hold the Roman world together for the next 4 centuries. And in many ways, that's what he succeeded in doing.
There's an old expression that Rome wasn't built in a day. Likewise, no one emperor can take credit for the imperial city. Each successive emperor sought to leave his mark by erecting massive structures for the good of the public and for his own immortality. Most accomplished this through invasions of territories and their establishment as Roman cities. This would be a Rome of glory, Rome of the emperors, starting from the 1st century BC and ending about the 5th century AD. As the city grew to become the largest, most sophisticated city of its time, it attracted a diverse group of people with a variety of occupations, diversions, and pleasures. Some celebrated this diversity, and others criticized it. Rome beautifully juxtaposed virtue and decadence.
pleasure is always hiding out, skulking in the darkness around baths and saunas, soaked in wine and perfume, or painted and embalmed as for a funeral. Philosopher and dramatist Seneca, 64 AD.
The structure of daily life in the capital city extended into the lives of those who would become Romanized as their cities were conquered. But there was order in a typical day in the city, not unlike our modern-day lives.
Got up early. I'm not talking about rich layabouts, and I'm not talking about the very poor, but the vast majority of people. Work was done in the morning. You had a very small breakfast. You did your work. If you were well-to-do and owned businesses and had political clout or were a politician, your house was open in the morning. And your clients, as they were called, would come. People who supported you, people who voted for you, people who ran your businesses for you. And you occupied yourself discharging that.
Housewives and slaves did the daily shopping, and those with nothing to do or any place to go may have wandered into a taberna for a snack. Schools were in session in the mornings, either in a taberna or an atrium, and libraries were open for business as well. By the noon hour, all was quiet in the city.
Then you had the midday meal, which for many people was the main meal. In the afternoon, you didn't work. If you were in a city of any size, you went to the baths. You saw your friends, you took your bath, you swam your laps, you listened and talked and gossiped, and you went home and rested, and then you had the late afternoon meal, or what we'd call dinner.
In the early evening, one might take a stroll to Circus Maximus and watch a game, or to a taberna to gamble. Those with problems to solve might visit a fortune teller or a temple. But contrary to the myth that Romans were a hedonistic and orgiastic bunch, it took a great deal of work, craft, and engineering to erect the buildings that would define the eternal city and tell of its inhabitants thousands of years later. Imperial Rome was the stage on which soldiers, slaves, entertainers, statesmen, and prostitutes all played out their roles in a backdrop of increasing grandeur. It was one which was to be adopted by cities in faraway lands as a sign that the Romans had conquered. Carthage, situated on the northern coast of Africa, was at one point the second largest city in the empire. Who built it? Why did it have such a mythical attraction? By the 3rd century BC, the Romans and the Carthaginians were on a collision course. They went head-to-head over who would rule Carthage and the rest of the African province. This deadly rivalry was played out for nearly a century in what history called the Great Punic Wars. It started with Hamilcar, the famous Carthaginian commander, warring with the Romans over Greek-occupied Sicily. The Carthaginians invaded Messana, Sicily, but were immediately wiped out by the increasingly powerful Romans. Animosity increased between the Romans and the Carthaginians, who were part of the great Phoenician culture. They migrated from what is now the Middle East to rural parts of North Africa and Spain. In the 3rd century BC, the Romans became a constant threat. Rome sought to gain control of this teeming port city and the vast natural resources of the African province. However, unprecedented challenges for the Roman legions would come not from Hamilcar, but from his son, Hannibal.
Hamilcar was about to cross to Spain with his army and was making sacrifices. Hannibal, then about 9 years old, was teasing his father to take him too. His father, still angry at the loss of Sicily, led him to the altar and made him swear to be the enemy of Rome as soon as he was able. The ancient historian Livy, 13 AD.
This promise fueled Hannibal with determined vengeance. At age 25, he fought relentlessly, sending Roman legions all over the Mediterranean, chasing after him.
Hannibal was able to go through Spain, up and over the Alps, and very quickly make his way down through Italy. And this happened between 218 and 216. In those 2 short years, the Romans fought 3 major battles and lost pretty much a whole army. The particular battle that broke them was the Battle of Cannae, which happened not far from Rome.
No one could have anticipated it. It was one of the most clever strategies in military history. Despite all of the obstacles and the death of many soldiers, Hannibal managed to reach Italy in 15 days with over 25,000 men and a herd of elephants.
When the stragglers from that battle came back into Rome and reported what happened, the people were so stunned that they began, because of their belief in the proper religious ritual and being linked to the proper running of the state, they began to look at what might have gone wrong. And part of the blame fell on 2 Vestal virgins who supposedly broke their vows. They are buried alive as a result of this.
A new Roman general, Scipio, arrived on the scene to cope with the crisis. He attacked Carthage while Hannibal was in Italy. Hannibal was forced to return to Carthage and defend his homeland. Scipio defeated Hannibal at Zama in 202 BC, and peace was declared on Roman terms. Hannibal took his pride to his death. He drank a cup of poison before being captured by the Romans. His final words were,
"Let us now put an end to the life which has caused the Romans so much anxiety." Hannibal, 202 BC.
Like Rome itself, the founding of the city of Carthage is shrouded in mystery. According to legend, the beautiful Phoenician queen Dido founded Carthage around 800 BC. As the story is told by the ancient poet Virgil, Dido captured the heart of the Roman hero Aeneas, sole survivor of the Trojan War. He was charged by the gods to found a new Troy in Italy. In the course of his mission, Aeneas turned up in Carthage and met the queen. A passionate love affair ensued.
The queen finds no rest. Deep in her veins, the wound is fed. She bursts with hidden fire. His manhood and the glory of his race are an obsession with her, like his voice, gesture, and countenance. The ancient poet Virgil, 17 BC.
They fall in love, and she wants him to stay, and he leaves and founds Rome. And of course, enormous tension there. I mean, this romantic, incredible love affair between these 2 exalted, the ideal woman and the ideal man, and so forth and so on. And what happens is he leaves. I mean, it's an enormous tragedy.
Troy was destroyed in 1300 BC. Carthage wasn't even built until 500 years later. So why did Virgil recount a love story between people who lived centuries apart? Perhaps to soften the rivalry between the 2 great Mediterranean cultures of his time. this ancient Phoenician metropolis was destined, like so many others, to become a Roman city. When in 146 BC the Romans destroyed Carthage in what was the last of the Punic Wars, the last defenders set fire to the temple where they had taken refuge and burned in the flames. For 10 days or more, after the Roman legions had plundered the city of all its riches, fires raged. All those who had surrendered were destined to become slaves. Every building left standing was obliterated. But how did Carthage become Romanized? How did it become the second largest cosmopolitan city in the empire after Rome? It was Julius Caesar who resurrected Carthage 100 years after it was taken and began a trend which would be continued by the emperors Augustus, Hadrian, and Antonius Pius. Roads, forums, temples, amphitheaters, and extravagant villas began cropping up on top of the scorched piles of the Phoenician city. No town was under Roman rule that did not have these essential structures. It was the base for what was by now known as the Roman Way. The famous saying, "When in Rome, do as the Romans," rings to the heart of how the empire expanded. It brought to its far reaches not only its physical imprint of city living, but the spiritual, philosophical, and practical values which the structure would sustain for millennia to come. According to Roman legend, the fate of the world rested in the hands of one woman. Her power was mightier than the gods. In 48 BC, the Alexandria Library in Egypt was thought to have been destroyed by fire, causing the loss of thousands of documents about medicine, science, and astrology. In 31 BC, Egypt became a Roman province, resulting in the suicide of Egypt's queen, Cleopatra. And in 29 AD, Jesus Christ was crucified. A handful of followers spread the new religion. Its converts eventually numbered over a third of the world's population. As the empire expanded and Rome itself became increasingly crowded, new colonies began to spring up in the interior regions. In Italy, as throughout the empire, these cities were a microcosm of the eternal city. Three perfect examples of Roman colonies in Italy are Cosa, Alba Fucens, and Palestrina. What made these small cities thrive in a rapidly growing empire were their strategic geographical positions, a strong civic pride, and special attractions which would draw crowds from throughout the empire. Thousands of families at a time would be transported from Rome to uncharted territories to construct new cities like Cosa, Alba Fucens, or Palestrina. The Romans divided their parcels of land equally among all sons, which may seem like a good idea at first glance, but with each successive generation, the plots got smaller and smaller. To increase the size of their land holdings, Roman families encouraged their sons to leave Rome and set themselves up in one of the outlying colonies. These colonies remained dependent to a large degree on the state of Rome itself. Under Roman law, those who were obedient were rewarded. Transgressors were punished and responsible to not just their city, but the state as well. This perpetuated a sense of unity and an incentive to be obedient. In turn, Rome offered protection, order, and open trade throughout the empire. But what were these colonies like? What were the lives like of the pioneers who settled there? And what attributes of the ancients are still visible in the standing relics of today? Cosa, poised on top of a hill in beautiful Tuscany, was originally built as a military base to protect the Romans from their enemy tribe, the Volsci. Its strategic position enabled Cosa to keep a vigilant eye on a major Roman highway, the Via Valeria, which stretched up the coast from Rome and through the Tuscan hills. Typically, many cities functioned as a military base, but by the end of the Roman Republic, the threat from the Volsci had subsided, and an exquisite agrarian town began to develop in Cosa.
It's at that moment that you start seeing little houses being built all along the insulae. With a colony like Cosa, Rome was reproducing itself.
Although years of excavations at Cosa have supplied us with clues about the colony, much remains a mystery. It is clear that the city had periods of abandonment and resurrection. The problem of getting water to this mountaintop city appears to be the reason Cosa did not continually thrive, and some of the latest evidence reveals a horrific end to this community.
We found in the cistern a skeleton with a perimortal, a wound in his hip made just before he died because it didn't have any chance to heal again. So we think that along with a decapitated skeleton in the neighboring cistern, suggests that this little 7th century settlement came to a very violent end.
Alba Fucens, on the other hand, was a small city that had a balance of functions and resources which allowed it to survive to the end of the empire. But civic pride was the fabric that held this city together and strengthened its political link to the Eternal City. Alba Fucens was situated in a small valley high in the Abruzzi Mountains, the land of sheep herders, farmers, and loyal soldiers.
Its job was partly to defend Rome against the mountain tribes living in the interior. Also, it was designed to watch over and defend major roads. There seemed to have been about something like 6,000 families that were transplanted here.
The Albans were simple, hard-working people with strong character, and loyalty was not just an attribute of its soldiers. An inscription over the entrance of the city's amphitheater reveals civic pride. This theater was built by a small town man named Macro, who left Alba to find his fortune in Rome. He earned an important position in the Roman government. Success did not make Macro forget his roots. This kind of loyalty was common. It was a stabilizing force for Rome and its colonies, despite the distance between them. "85 miles south of Alba Fucens is Palestrina. Though most colonies were built from the base of military grid, Palestrina broke all convention. It blended various aspects of city life, the spiritual, the political, and the entertaining in one enormous structure, which made this city famous. Palestrina was perched high up on a hill and looked down on the capital, Rome. A powerful and enigmatic cult deity resided in a shrine within this massive structure in Palestrina. Her name was Fortuna, known to all as the goddess of fortune. This was the only monument in the empire housing the goddess Fortuna, so believers flocked to Palestrina from all over the empire. Where did this shrine come from? And where did the people of Palestrina get the idea of building such an enormous shrine? The people of Palestrina were helping the Romans in their territorial conquests. Is it possible that this was their opportunity to create a great monument glorifying these victories? After all, they had been mesmerized by the dazzling cities of Greece and Pergamum. According to legend, an oracle would read pieces of wood found in a well at the shrine and predict the future to the crowds that would gather. But what sort of people would come to have their fortunes told?
When they first built the shrine in the 2nd century BC, it impressed everybody. High and low, great and small, all came. So I think you must imagine people assembling from all round, and above all, coming out from Rome.
But in the civil wars of the 1st century BC, the fate of Palestrina took a deadly turn when it allied with the wrong side. This led to the massacre of the entire male population. Palestrina declined in importance from this point on, but the shrine remains a testament to the city's grandeur. These were the dark, clandestine canals of the underworld in the ancient Roman city of Trier. Located in what is present-day Germany, Trier was once the capital of the Western Empire, around 27 AD. Like all Roman amphitheaters, this one in Trier was designed to emulate the great Colosseum in the Eternal City. This is where Roman gladiators fought to the death as a form of popular entertainment. Within the dank, dark walls of the theater's sewer system, a number of mysterious inscribed tablets were discovered, which provide clues to the ancients' relationship with the underworld.
If you wanted to wish a disease onto somebody, or even death, or if you wanted to cast a love spell, this wish was written onto a lead tablet. The tablet was folded and put into a place that reached into the underworld.
The people of Trier seemed to believe in black magic. They would often honor the underworld through graphic reenactments. This theater, rich with the spirit and relics of its people, is one of Trier's oldest surviving Roman structures. But what were the Romans doing in Trier? Why was it once the capital of the empire? Who founded this mysterious city, and how did it grow into the 3rd largest metropolis of the Roman Empire? The Emperor Augustus founded the city of Trier in 17 AD. It was the first city on German soil to bear his name. In the process of expanding the empire into Germania, Augustus went to Gaul to set up a supply base for the Rhine legions. Trier was perfect, located in the heart of the Moselle Valley, with shipping access to the Moselle River.
In the year 70, there was a big battle even here on the bridge, a battle between Celts that had rebelled, and then a Roman legion. The Roman commander had gone into town over the night. A battle erupted, and he, so to speak, in his pajamas, came running across the bridge, stopped the fleeing soldiers, turned the tide of the battle, and won a decisive victory.
As a result of this battle, the superstitious Romans would toss coins over the bridge to pacify the river gods. This was done in an attempt to make up for the peace and quiet they had disturbed during the battle. Even today, one can find coins that have been tossed in the river as a gesture to the gods. Trier was always an important city, rich from trade and strategically fortified. Trier saw the reign of 6 Roman emperors, but the most important one was the Emperor Constantine. Constantine had resided mainly in Trier. He was determined to turn the city into a capital befitting his vast ambitions. These are the ruins of what were once the opulent imperial baths known as the Kaiserthermen. They were comparable in size to the famous baths of Caracalla in Rome. The most famous scandal of the 4th century revolved around Constantine's family, and its resolution took place in the Kaiserthermen.
Constantine had been married twice, and his second wife accused the son of the first wife to have committed adultery with her, and so Constantine had him put to death. But the wife was found out, and she was taken into an overheated bath and smothered in the hot steam.
In 316 AD, Constantine relocated his seat of government to Byzantium, and Trier slowly went into decline. The Rhine army was eventually withdrawn, and the rich upper class returned to Rome, leaving the town vulnerable to invasion. Like all of the cities of the ancient Roman Empire, Trier became recycled into modern life, a testament to its endurance. The Imperial Age was one of the most inspirational eras in the development of the modern city. In the Imperial Age, building was almost a spiritual calling. It transcended mere design, practicality, and aesthetics. To Romans, the designing and building of cities became a blueprint for the flourishing of humanity for centuries to come.